particularly powerful in his early upbringing. He comes from humble beginnings, rising from modest circumstances to become a trailblazer in one of the most advanced scientific disciplines of our time. Today, he holds a historic distinction. Dr. Lawrence is the first Black American to earn a PhD in artificial intelligence, breaking barriers in a field that is shaping the future of humanity. Throughout his career, Dr. Lawrence has built and led some of the most innovative technology initiatives in the world. He previously served as IBM's first ever Chief Technology Officer for Responsible AI. Dr. Lawrence was also appointed an IBM Distinguished Engineer, one of the company's highest technical honors, awarded to fewer than 1% of IBM's global workforce and conferred by the Chief Executive Officer in recognition of extraordinary technical leadership and innovation. Dr. Lawrence was a key member of IBM's Global AI Ethics Board. He is also the award-winning author of the book that we're discussing tonight, having conversations about, Hidden in White Sight, How AI Empowers and Deepens Systemic Racism, a groundbreaking work examining how algorithms can unintentionally reinforce societal inequality. Beyond industry, Dr. Lawrence is deeply committed to empowering the next generation. He is the founder of AI for Black Kids, a global nonprofit introducing young students to artificial intelligence and ethical technology leadership. And, you know, as the educator that I am, I can tell you, Dr. Lawrence and I have had some conversations about this coming soon to our schools, too. We're going to be introducing him to some of the great work that STEAM Academy is doing there at Cedar Bridge on the Neville Zoo. So, hey, ideal. Some great things are going to be happening. He is the founder of IntegrityFirst.ai, where he is building the groundbreaking Xtegrity platform, the first platform to embed human-centered accountability directly into AI governance lifecycle, ensuring that the systems shaping our future remain aligned with human values. In recognition of his leadership and global impact, Dr. Lawrence was recently named a 2026 HBCU Executive Leadership Fellow. His work and thought leadership have been recognized and featured by major media outlets, including CNN, C-SPAN, Good Morning America, Amazon Prime, CBS News, NBC News, Black Enterprise, Rolling Out, and Magic 102.7. Yes, right, people. And many, many others. What makes Dr. Lawrence unique is that he is not only a scholar and author, he is a builder. And when I say we need our builders of the Black community, globally, locally, nationally. Someone who has spent his career inside the systems, shaping our digital future. I got to read that one again, because someone who has spent his career inside the systems, shaping our digital future. Today, he speaks around the world about artificial intelligence, ethical technology, and the responsibility we all share in shaping the future of his powerful technology. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you in webinar and those of you in the listening audience out there in North America, UK, Caribbean, yeah, we do it globally and locally. Please welcome Dr. Calvin D. Lawrence. Sir, it is a pleasure.
No, loaded. The pleasure is all mine. That was a long introduction. I'm just put it down. But no, thank you. I appreciate it. As I mentioned to you earlier, I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this chat.
Well, I'll say to you this here, that it is indeed a pleasure, and I'm not wasting any time with this. Having read the book, going through the book, I will ask you this here, and I, like I said, I encourage the listening audience to invest in this book, Hidden in White Sight, How AI Empowers and Deepens Systemic Racism. I'm going to start off really setting the tone with All Shut Eyes Ain't Sleep. That's the first chapter. And I gotta say this to you, you know, when I read that chapter, it made me ask this question. I said, I have to ask Dr. Calvin this question. All shut eyes ain't sleep. It made me think of, with AI, are we now of a surveillance state?
Absolutely.
I mean, absolutely. I think that was the hidden gem behind that. Matter of fact, it's interesting that you bring that up first, because really some of the corporate elite, that was one of those terminologies that, or phrases in the book, or all the phrases that are used. That was one that got a lot of attention, because it kind of alludes to what you just said, that we are in a state of surveillance. And I think the reason for that is because big data is money. Data is money, right? So it's not that people just want to see what you are doing, per se, but they want to monetize what you're doing. They want to monetize where you go, what you say, who you collaborate with, who you talk to. And I actually get pretty deep in the book in regards to just nothing is hidden. Anything that you say on the internet, I can guarantee you I built some app or some AI system, whether it's social media, doesn't matter whether it's your telephone or your phone, but all data can be monetized. So I made that statement really in reference Siri and Alexa. And I think I even said in the book, when you really think about it, there's nothing that you would say that you could say around Siri and Alexa that have. So everything you say, even if it seems like the box is asleep, because I said to one of my friends, if it was sleep and it wasn't listening, I didn't hear its name. He said, hello, hi, Alexa, and it wakes up. That means it supposes that it was already awakened. You can't hear anything when it's asleep. That term came from my grandma when I was a little boy. The old people used to get around and they would be talking, and they would make the kids get outside even if you were pretending to be asleep. So the idea is, my grandmama would say, just because your eyes is closed doesn't mean that you're not listening. So that was kind of the genesis of the impotence, if I could say, behind kind of that statement in the book.
Right, and such a powerful statement in that it moved me thinking, and I have to ask you this here as an extension of this. When we think of course, artificial intelligence, and I often say, Dr. Calvin, that, and you have often said it too, and others, it's here to stay, people. It is our life now. And much of our responsibility, which is something that you talk about, much of our responsibility is our coexistence with AI. And many people think in terms of artificial intelligence taking over the human existence. And you come from somewhat of a different perspective. And I wonder if the fear that people bring with AI, as much as people look at AI through ChatGPT and all the other AI apps and so forth that are very beneficial to us, how do we move our people to a greater understanding of the balance between the machine learning and their humanistic responsibility and moral consciousness?
Yeah, wow, that was a deep one right there, Lou, because that was one that I think that's the essence of the conversation. I'll start by saying, really just define what artificial intelligence is, at least from my perspective. Mm-hmm. And it really aligns to what you just said. I think it goes to the answer of the question. Artificial intelligence is simply the science of making a machine that can think, reason, and learn like a human. The learning piece is the unique component. That's what makes it different from some of the technologies like Java and C++ and these other technologies that might be running on your phone or might be running your computer or your television. What makes artificial intelligence different is this ability to be trained to perform a task. So if that is the case, it needs human input. It needs lots of data. That's why they call it big data. They call it large language models. People in the industry and people even outside of the industry, they've heard of things like ChatGPT, which is a large language model. In order to train it, you need lots of data from lots of different scenarios and people in particular. So back to your question, when someone tells me this, what and by the way, many folks, I've been on a bunch of panels, mostly with white scholars. The idea is that AI, the fear is this apocalyptic kind of view, this Star Wars, or it's kind of in the world. And they say that, I think, mostly out of fear that they too will have to be destroyed if that happens, right? So in that case, right, their mindset is that, okay, we're going to throw this fear out there, that somehow it's going to end the world. The reality of it is, it's disturbing piece right now if we don't get ahead of it, and we as people of color are not a part of it, right? AI is surveilling us, it's policing us, it's getting that wrong, it's denying us from loans, it's keeping us out of universities. All those things are happening to people of color all over the world right today. So my point is, we don't have to wait to some apocalyptic moment that could or could not happen to be concerned with it right now. So I tell people of color, I tell folks, no matter who I talk to, don't be so concerned about AI going rogue, when AI without guardrails today is already going rogue. It's already, right, providing havoc, mainly because we're not at the table. You said earlier, me being inside of the room. Yeah, that's the value I have. It's not the PhD. Anybody can get a PhD. Probably wasn't one of the hardest things I've ever done. Some of the hardest things I've ever done is sitting in the room with having a team of 25 data scientists who are building mission critical applications around policing and claim processing and claims adjudication and risk adjudication. And all of those people, all of the 25, I'm the only person black and I'm leading the team. Like, to me, like, that's the hardest thing. Because you know that when they're building these systems, and I got story after story, and we can get to some of them during this conversation, where the optics of who's doing the programming, who's sitting at the table, will determine the outcome of the algorithm. And because it's not a lot of us at the table, I said in the book, and this was another thing that people wanted to kind of beat my hand up for, is that I've worked on hundreds of teams, led many of them, worked on them. I've never been on a team with 5 or more people when there was more than one black person on that whole team. That's an inside story. So someone who hasn't been on the inside, who haven't been there, they probably could not attest to that. Could not share those same level of details. So for me, that is more of the fear than the concept of somehow AI is going to end the world. No, I think that's a fear that folks give us because they don't want us to be a part of it. They want us to be a catalyst and keep our hands off it when we are a part of the solution. Hopefully that answers. I know.
Well, it does answer, and your positionality in this serves as a beacon for us to be more involved in it. And when I say be more involved in it, that's one of the things that I appreciated about the book. You know, I was reading and I was saying to myself, this is an eclectic type of read for me. Meaning that it was multiple stories relevant to AI that's relatable. The medical, the judicial, the policing, the corporate, and of course, as I shared with you prior to this here, a focus of my conversations with you in questioning is around the corporate aspect of it, only because Bermuda prides itself on its risk management global status. Corporate Bermuda runs Bermuda, much like corporate runs most of, and some will say, American economy, Canadian economy, UK economy. Some will even call it the Ponzi scheme economy of America. But be that what it is, that's part of the reality. And with it comes something else that you talk about in terms of the biases associated with what you would find in the medical field, the biases that you would find in the judicial. And I was so intrigued in terms of the, in terms of the predictability, in terms of policing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As it relates to Bermuda right now, to give you some context, of course, we are experiencing an epidemic of violence, murder violence, gang-related violence. For the last 20 years, it has escalated. And when I read that chapter and was pondering, I said, wow, we have, like, for example, 40 unsolved crimes related to gang-related life. And I said, after reading your chapter, I said, there's a formula in this. There's a formula in this to help solve maybe one or two of these crimes, you know? And it had me thinking in terms of what more can be done. And I'd just like for you to share some more about that, because you give a very, the story that you give, and that's the beautiful thing of your book. It's an easy read. It's not a technical book. It's a book that has the technological aspect of AI in it, but very relatable, especially in terms of the black experience wherever we are. It's relatable. And I said, wow, I know that story. As a undergrad student in the United States of America, in New England, you know, pulled over. I know that story. When you talk about the medical trauma, we know that story here in Bermuda. We know that story. And so I'd really like for you to share in terms of when we talk about corporate choice, when we talk about the policing, predictability, and all of that. When we talk about the medical trauma associated with AI and the responsibilities of us and the trusting of us, is it accurate to say that all AI is statistical modeling, as it is also machine learning? Or do you, as the pioneer that you are, make a distinction between AI as a statistical model, and a machine learning approach? Do you make that distinction?
And that's a good question. I do make the distinction. those are two independent characteristics of artificial intelligence. So the statistical modeling piece of it is true, because you're dealing with models, you're dealing with taxonomies, you're dealing with large data sets, right? And the machine learning component is obviously, some would even argue that if it doesn't have the machine modeling, the machine learning component, then it's not AI. Some would argue strongly that the statistical modeling piece is just a core capability, and the same as machine learning, right? So I do make the distinction, but they're partners. They're ingredients in the same cake, if I will. So in depending upon the use case, they manifest themselves more so than the other. But there are other ingredients. There are other ingredients also. But if I can backdoor into your beginning question in regards to use cases like predictive policing, obviously who should get a mortgage, who should get into a school system. AI basically how we manifest it today. It manifests in two ways. It's predicting something, being able to do some trends analysis using statistical modeling at its core, and then determining a prediction. And the other thing that it does well is recommendations. So it predicts something and it recommends something. And so you manifest that kind of any way you want to. It can predict where a crime is going to happen. It can predict who committed the crime. It can even predict who's likely to be a victim of a crime. And so in policing, these are some of the use cases. So it can recommend. One of the use cases that I've worked with a lot of police stations, really, all over the world. My PhD, my thesis, my dissertation was around law enforcement and its use in AI. That was kind of the area that I specialized in when I was going after my PhD. So I studied and researched some 745 different police precincts all over the world. Most of those was in the U.S., but it wasn't relegated just to the U.S. And all of them are using some form of AI, some to be able to determine where crime might occur, who committed the crime. That's why you see things like facial recognition and others, but predicting policing is not just facial recognition, but mostly where to dispatch officers. No matter where you go in the world, like in Bermuda also, they don't have enough police. For whatever reason, with all of the stuff, I know in the U.S., because of the negative connotation around policing, you have lots of people who don't want to be in that industry. So people who would go into policing in the 90s and early 2000s, mid 2000s, they are now doing something different. So they're struggling. They're struggling with getting enough law enforcement agencies to solve crime. So AI comes to the table, and it's an amazing technology, right? If you got, 50 unsolved crimes, if that's my daughter that's missing, I want the police to use any technology to their disposal to figure it out, right? So and in the book I talk about this, and I gave that story that you mentioned was my personal story. It was something that happened to me, right? Which is really all first 7 chapters are really personal stories. People that I know or solutions that I have worked on myself or something that has happened to me directly. So that was the first 7 or 8 chapters of that book. It was more like a biography as opposed to me teaching about AI. So the idea was, I'll tell you a story, I'll tell you what we built, I'll tell you what our intentions were, I'll tell you how we built it, and then I'll tell you what actually happened. Because that is the issue. It's not about what we build, it's about how folk can use what we build to do what they want to do, right? So if you're just using AI to solve crime, man, I'm all for it. Call me. Call my company. I'll come and help you build it. I'll help you design it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're using AI in a nefarious way, and I talk about some of those examples, and I can tell you there's plenty of them out there. Folk call me, and they're saying, hey, we want you to come and consult with us, and we want to use AI in this way. Sometimes I back off and say, no, it's not a proper use case. It's not a proper use case for me. So I get back to your point. I do believe I'm an AI guy. Right? I've talked about me doing it. The bio talked about me doing it in the mid '90s. I got my master's degree in artificial intelligence in the mid '90s. The book came out in 2023, but I wrote the book in 2022. Nobody knew what AI was. Nobody was calling me for it. Was only time people called me was at that point was they wanted me to build something. They weren't calling me to be on CNN or a radio station because nobody knew what it was. But my point is that I've been doing it for a long time, so I know the value of it. It's an amazing technology when used with proper guardrails.
Right.
And sometimes people don't want to insert the proper guardrails because it costs them something, costs corporate something. So they would prefer to have the easy way out, and that's where I stand up and say, I'll write books, I'll do lectures, I'll put my credibility on the line because I truly believe this technology deserves to be used.
Let me ask you this here because you brought that up. I mean, the guardrails, and you do speak of that. If you can elaborate some more on what are some of the proper guardrails that corporate leaders must ensure, for example, for their corporate teams to deliver that trusted and responsible AI solutions you speak to?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think number one is accountability. Like every model, the challenge that we have today is that there's not a lot of accountability. So a company will build a model, build an AI system, because it's the right thing to build. It's going to create the efficiencies. It's going to save them money. And they'll build it, and they'll deploy it in the same way we've deployed technology in the past. That's not the case with AI, right? So accountability is very, very important. You got to have some person accountable for the model. Because if you have no accountability for the model, there's no way for you to have some accountability for the harm that it can cause.
Yeah.
Right? So there's things like transparency, explainability. There's nothing worse than to build an algorithm. Let's just take, I won't use policing. I want to use policing. Let's just take the mortgage industry or the insurance industry, right? There's nothing worse than a bank to build an algorithm in AI to predict whether a person will get a loan or not and remove the underwriter from the conversation, remove the human from it, and then allow AI to determine whether Lou gets the loan.
But just a frequent practice with many banks. I mean, I know here in Bermuda, there are accusations of even local banks with practices of bias and people always, questioning, well, you loaned me this before. I've come back for a comparable type of loan. I'm denied this loan this time. And even with mortgages, in the past, people here frowned upon, that they were not getting mortgages. or not getting the best deal even in a mortgage. I mean, in Bermuda, unlike the U.S., there's somewhat of a negotiation in terms of mortgage. It can, depending on where you are and what state you are looking to purchase, for example. Here, your mortgage will probably be 6, 7, 8%, attached to it, versus in the U.S. you may have housing and buy a home with a percentage, maybe 4 or 5. And so people question, in a place like Bermuda with a very high, or the highest cost of living, and you'll experience it when you come, because it'll be your first trip, yeah? Be your first trip, so you'll know how expensive Bermuda is. And so
I've heard the story.
And I'll say, it'd be interesting to work out the algorithms associated with that, because even from the perspective of as much as we are told the quality of life we have and the high cost of living comparatively, it's not for the majority people that's here, right? We even have experiencing people leaving the island, going to the UK, because it's more sustainable to them economically. Leaving the colony to go to so-called UK, the motherland, as it is still a colony of Britain, of the UK. So I'm curious, interestingly, and I want your response to this, if at all, because you brought up about the banks. And this was coming from, actually, one of our chief investment officers. He made a statement. He said, the banks are likely, this is in Bermuda, the banks are likely one of the most important beneficiaries of new AI technologies, while the impact of private credit concerns on banks is probably overblown. And so, given your knowledge of AI...
Say that last part again.
Okay. I'll read the full thing. The banks are likely one of the most important beneficiaries of new AI technologies, while the impact of private credit concerns on banks is probably overblown. And so when we talk about these new technologies that he references, the beneficiaries of new AI technologies, what will be some of those AI technologies that many of the banks are beneficiaries of today, in your experience?
Yeah, no, I tell you, I've spent, while at IBM, I spent a lot of time in Wall Street, a lot of time in the banking and insurance industry, years, right? That was one of those areas, because those were the regulatory environments, and they had lots of money. Mm-hmm. They could pay IBM lots of high salaries.
Yeah.
So the financial services industry is, I agree, that it is, in particular, probably the most advantageous industry for this technology. So think about it. Statistical modeling. They've always used this whole concept of actuary kind of views. So let's think about it in Bermuda. Let's talk about Bermuda, right? We're the insurance risk in the capital of Bermuda, when you think about it, is probably shaping the economy per se. So what do banks, not just in Bermuda, all over the world, what do they come to folk like me, right? They do three things, right, in the financial services, especially they deal with money, manage money. So underwriting decisions is always kind of like, can give you tons of use cases around underwriting. It used to be where you would have humans in the loop. You would have human underwriters. That was like a job. You go to college and you go and you become an underwriter. That's not the case anymore. Banks they'll come to me and it's like, we want, and I'm careful on to say this because many of them will deny this. We'll say, well, we want to replace our underwriters. Well, AI is a great replacement for an underwriter. The problem is that AI is not a human. So we don't have human emotions whatsoever. So therefore, if it's done wrong, the person who's going to get impacted around an underwriting decision, it tells you whether or not you're going to get something or not. The underwriter goes through lots of different variables and tell you whether or not you get the loan, whether you get the house or the car or the motorcycle or the business loan. Goes to underwriting. Well, AI can replace those underwriters. And I would tell you that there's story after story and things that I've seen on my own, and even code that I've written that I had to back off and do it differently, that AI can make decisions, underwriting decisions, based on things that you did not tell it. We call it proxying. We call it proxy bias, meaning that no application around underwriting will ask you your race. It's illegal. We call that a protected attribute. Like race, gender, ethnicity, whether or not you're handicapped. Those are protected variables. There's laws. Take AI out of the picture. There's just laws that a human can't go and not give you a loan, Lou, even in Bermuda because you're black. They won't say that. They might still do it. Not saying that they don't do it, but they can't legally go off and do that. So let's inject AI into the situation, right? So AI can determine your race without you telling me your race. I can determine your gender. I mean, it's common sense when you think about it. You go to a store and you're female. I can close my eyes and just tell based upon your buying history whether you're male or female. There's certain things that a female is going to buy. So you don't have to tell me you're a female. You don't have to tell me you're black. I can actually tell based on where you live. In the U.S., every city in America is segregated by and large. Based upon your zip code, I can pretty much determine your race. So think about this from an AI perspective. A human underwriter at most can evaluate 4 or 5 different inputs. Say you're trying to get a loan. They can evaluate your credit score. They can evaluate whether or not how long you've had a job. Can evaluate your debt income ratio. A couple more. So human. So if you do all those things pretty good, you got a good credit score, you paid your bills, you've done all that on time, you got a good job, you've had it for a while, you don't have any felonies, you pretty much can get the loan based upon your income level. You can't buy a Lamborghini with a Toyota salary, but you can buy a Toyota with a Toyota salary, right? That's a human person. Now let's inject AI in it. Now AI, I can build a model and I can look at 12,000 inputs about you. I can even look at whether or not your brother has a felony and whether your brother is going to live in the house with you. If I'm a bank, that matters to me because your risk score goes up. Because you're hanging around with felons. But what does your brother have to do with you paying that loan? A human underwriter will make assessments for that. And they say, well, Lou is nothing like his brother. And you'll still get the loan. But if I take that human out, and AI is going to always make a data decision, not an ethics decision. So underwriting, you asked me for some examples. Underwriting, who's going to get the loan? Underwriting. But once you get it, what price are you going to get? So risk pricing, that's more important than getting the decision. If you get a loan, but your mortgage rate is 9%, when it should be 3%, it effectively will determine whether you get the loan or not. Because you'll walk away and say, I can't afford the monthly payments, right? So from that perspective, you got the underwriting, risk pricing, and then third, which some would say probably the most important thing that I see, is about the claim decisions, especially in insurance. And my roof, I needed to replace my roof. Had some hail damage, and it was pretty obvious to me that I needed to replace my roof. Gotten the underwriting decision, had given me a check, had gotten the policy. The risk pricing had given me a check. I had gotten pricing that was reasonable for me. But the claim decision, that was a human. And the human was recalculated to say, this guy's trying to get over. He lives in a black neighborhood. Nothing wrong with his roof. It was obvious something was wrong with my roof. I got third-party people, and it's like, you need a new roof. But my friend on the north side of town, that's white, my colleague, IBM, I told him this story. He said, like, wow. He's like, I don't have that issue. Like, if I call my insurance, it's like, but you pay your policy, right? How dare they not give you? Well, in our community, they do that all the time. The claim decision. So you've got humans making racially motivated, prejudiced claim decisions. So this is the point, right? This is the point. I said earlier that AI is defined as the system that reasons and learns like a human. Who is it learning from? The data point. So take my example. If you took me to that same insurance company and told me to build a model to predict whether a person should get a new roof when these types of scenarios happen, I'm gonna actually, the first thing I'm gonna ask the insurance company is give me all of your data, all of the claim decisions that you've made over the last 5 years. So what I'm gonna ask any AI person, I'm gonna ask. Without that, I can't build a model for you. So I'm gonna ask that person, that organization, give me all of your claim data. From that claim data, I'll build a model, I'll train the model, and it will predict from the data. But what if your data over the last 5 years have been prejudice against people of color in determining whether or not their claims are approved? Do you think that AI is going to make a different decision? It is not. It is no way for AI to make a different decision than the people have made over the last 5 years. It's not a human. Goes back to what we were talking about earlier when you're saying this apocalyptic view. No, this is real right now. It's not about something that's going to happen. And I have paid my premiums over the last 10 years, and now I get an opportunity to file a claim. And the human person, claim adjuster, is not there anymore. AI is there, and some would say, well, AI is more fair. It's fairer than a human. It's the great leveler. I think I don't have a copy of my book here, but on the back of it, I say that AI is supposed to be this great equalizer, this great leveler, and people even in the industry will argue. I've had people,
the great social equalizer.
Yeah, I've had people send me hate mail. You wouldn't believe how much hate mail I get from scholars telling me, how dare you call AI biased? How dare you say AI? No, AI is not biased. The people
behind it are
the
biased.
decisions that were made over the last 5 years, right? You think of it's no different in Bermuda. No different in Bermuda, right? It's no different in Canada. Toronto went to Toronto. It's not, let's look at the data. The data doesn't lie. And what people think, what they make the mistake, but they don't make it with me, because I know better, is that they think you can build AI without data, the coins.
You need the data.
You need the data. And what does the data say? The data says, it's like this. I'll get to the policing. Let's say once a law enforcement agency in the U.S. brought me in to predict who to give traffic tickets to. So you're driving up and down the same road. Then the police can't give everybody a ticket. He can't give everybody a ticket. Only he just determines who's he's sleeping. He's sitting here and got his speedometer around and he's looking. But you got people who coming and going, and everybody can't get a ticket. So it's like, well, we can use AI to increase the amount of tickets that we get. Same thing that you see now with ticketless systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I come in and I build, talk to them about building the system. And the first thing I asked them is, okay, I'm going to need at least 5 years of data of people who you've given tickets to on this stretch of road. So if you give me that 5 years of data, I can then predict, I can program it, I can train it to predict what type of car is most likely to be speeding. They want to know that too. They want to know what type of car to look at. I can't look at every car, but if you give me a red BMW, then I'm going to wake up. I'm going to look. It's going to beep. Right? So it's giving me the last 5 years of data. So it gave me the last 5 years of data. And data is relational. So it has the race, as whoever it is, and look at this data. My AI is never going to predict any segment that's not represented in that data set. It will never, if you only arrested black drivers on this street over the last 5 years, accuracy for my model will be 99.99% black. That's what it's going to tell you. You say, what's the profile of a person who's most likely to be speeding on this rate? It's always going to be a black person. It cannot predict or recommend a white person.
And that's because of the data that you have inputted into that app.
And that's why I say earlier, like when I wrote the book, even the publisher was pushing me not to use the word bias on the cover. Bias on the cover, because bias kind of presupposes that somebody has done something accidentally. It was unintentionally. But I was adamant. It's not bias. It's systemic racism. It can't be biased because you're not just flipping a coin. Just told you, like, you can flip a coin all you want. It's never going to come back with some high percentage of white people in that particular area if you've never arrested one. So it's just, so if your policing practices, if your hiring practices, if your banking practices over the last 5 years have been discriminatory against some population, whether it's women, whether it's men, whatever it is, then you can pretty much bet that the algorithm, if you don't put guardrails, now you can ingest the human and change the data set and say, no, like Calvin, we know that's 90% black, we know what it is, so let's just ingest some white one. We call that synthetic data.
Let me ask you this here, Dr. Calvin. Let me ask, because it's something that you said that made ponder this here. In the risk capital that Bermuda is, right? That's the world title ascribed to Bermuda. High cost of living, housing inequities and inequalities, with all its so-called diversity. And diversity is also something significant to you in terms of AI, especially if we're talking about, I'm listening to previous interviews that you've done, and you speak of the significance, the importance of the diversity in the application and implementation of AI. And it had me also thinking, in this, how can there be fairness and transparency? And I'll put this in here because you speak to affirmative action, and that's a subject that comes up often in Bermuda, in a island country that is predominantly black, but whose citizenry or subjects, we like to say, it's still a colony, whose subjects are, especially when we talk about, I mean, black males are probably on the lower end of the totem pole in Bermuda. And so there's been much discussion in terms of argument for affirmative action to be deployed in Bermuda. I'll give you a point. We had a big airport project, and there was lots of discussion around, well, a percentage of the contracts should go to black contractors in Bermuda, recognizing who the majority were in controlling the capital for their airport development. It was something comparable if you go back to Atlanta. Maynard Jackson, for example, made sure that in building the Atlanta airport, he was adamant that a certain percentage must go to black contractors on this project. And so there was a similar claim being made in Bermuda. Often it's a claim that is made very often in terms of affirmative action. So I'm curious in terms of the AI implications and the fairness and the transparency being done in these types of scenarios, and especially in a place like Bermuda where, you know, like I said, the great majority of people here do not benefit from the abundance of wealth that's here.
Yeah. Well,
But
I mean, I learned a lot.
Supposedly enjoying the fruits of a high cost of living. The tag, that is. Oh, you live in Bermuda, luxury, da 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 da. But for those, the great majority, it isn't luxury. It's a struggle every day. And there are those who argue it is justification for affirmative action policies and procedures to take place. And I wanted to get your insight or your perspective, because even in the book, I look in the book, for example, when you talk about, where was it? We were talking, it was the legislative issue. And I was going through it, and I said, it had me thinking of affirmative action in terms of when I was going through some of this here. When you in the book on page 196, you said, I take the position of black technologist who has designed and continues to design solutions and provide guidance to corporations that deliver AI solutions that impact people of color. I take the position of a member of the impacted community who is often marginalized, disenfranchised by the same solutions, right? And in it, you say, I inherit a unique responsibility to ensure that any potential legislative efforts to provide guidance around AI systems are meaningful and practically based. And there's a listing of, what is it? There's nine points of reference here, and you outline them. And I was curious in terms of if you're talking about putting some of these, and was one in particular, and I read it, was number 5. Companies should ensure that consumers understand how the models and algorithms were created for high-risk AI systems such as healthcare, policing, credit, employment, and education when appropriate. That one stood out for me. It stands out for me because even right now, Dr. Kelvin, next week's show, we're addressing issues of universal health care. there's a lot of opposition to it from the medical members of the medical community. On the flip side, everyday citizens or subjects of Bermuda see universal health care as a necessity. As a matter of fact, many Bermudians are leaving Bermuda to go to the UK because of universal health care. And I was curious and said, I wonder what role AI, and because algorithms are playing out in so much of our lives, what algorithms are playing out or could be played out for the argument for even universal health care. And so that number 5 in your book, companies should ensure that consumers understand how the models and algorithms were created for high-risk AI systems, such as healthcare, had me thinking of the company of governance. And I was curious in terms of getting your insight and perspective, given that this is one that you put forward of potential legislative effort.
Wow. I probably should have taken some notes because that was so. No, that was compelling because I really think you hit what drives me personally. What drives me personally and why I do what I do, and why I made the decisions that I'm making. Even to this day, and much of what you just said in the questions that you. I say questions with an S that you just brought forward. A lot to say on that. So I'm going to say what's on top of my mind right now.
Okay, I want you to take what's on top of your mind, and then I'm honest with the time also. You know, we're top of the hour, and I told you I did not want to violate your time unless you want to go over.
So you got me now.
I've got you now. There we go. Take this, give your thought, and then we'll entertain some of the listening audience in studio.
I think this is a good one. I think this is a good one to kind of end upon and to give the audience an opportunity. Look, affirmative action it has everything to do with AI. It has everything to do with AI. I personally, some will argue with me. I know folk who don't look like me will argue. In the U.S., affirmative action was the letter of the law for about 30, 40 years or so. So it came after the civil rights movement you're aware of. And so affirmative action was this whole concept of accountability, legal accountability, right? And there's these terms that we see on the legal side that manifests itself in AI, and we call it disparate impact. Disparate impact is when someone does something to you, or an AI make a decision about you, it was deemed legally as disparate impact, meaning that the bank didn't really try to do it. The AI just kind of did it and made the decision, but it didn't really. So there's no accountability associated with that. It's like we can't take accountability. We know AI is not a human. It makes mistakes. That's disparate impact. Disparate treatment is the other legal term, and it happens in AI more than anything. Disparate treatment is that some AI predicted or recommended something that harmed you, and legally the person who built the model is responsible for that harm. So he has to pay damages. That's disparate impact. How does that relate to affirmative action? Well, affirmative action was the legal law that says if someone discriminated against you on housing, if someone discriminated against you in policing, if someone discriminated against you and not let you go to affirmative action was the law of the land that says that not only is it ethically bad, it's legally bad. So what happened because of affirmative action, it gave people a moral conscience who would do stuff that they can't do now because they don't want to get sued. Well, in the U.S., a few years back, the Supreme Court struck down affirmative action. So in the U.S., affirmative action is no more. Right after that is this onset of AI. Now, people like me was doing AI before, but these banks that you're talking about, we would go to them all the time and tell them, let me build a model around AI, and they would say no. They would say no. In Bermuda, in the U.S., and Canada, they would say no, we don't have budget for that. But all of a sudden now, nobody says no. Every bank wants to do AI. Every insurance company wants to do AI. I'm not suggesting that there's some kind of hidden agenda, but it's interesting that it came after affirmative action is of no more. Is of no more in the U.S. in particular. And so what does that mean? I'll wrap it up. That means that today, legally, an AI algorithm can do what it can, break any rule and law it wants to make, because there is no law. There is no U.S. law. There's nothing, no affirmative action, no accountability. The best that you can get if a facial recognition algorithm arrests you because it made a mistake, and we all know that AI is 90% more likely to misidentify a person of color than it is a white person. So 99 times out of 10, it'll get wrong with your skin color. And there's lots of reasons that I don't have time to go into on why that's the case. But if that happens, I just had a person on my podcast who was the very first person in the U.S. to get arrested because of facial recognition. He went to jail, and there's tons of other people. They call that despairing impact. Nobody's held accountable. Nor the police say, just made a mistake. If you take AI out of the picture, and you bring affirmative action, that person would have been able to sue for millions of dollars for false arrest. So when you say affirmative action, let's work our way back to Bermuda, right? It's a necessity. Affirmative action is a necessity. It's a necessity for us in the U.S. It's just that they struck it down. But we're seeing we're seeing the response of not having it. Because if we had affirmative action, then much of what could possibly was around these lack of guardrails that are put in place. That's, in my mind, that's why Congress will not sign an AI Act very similar to the EU AI Act. We have nothing like that in the U.S., and it's because of these reasons that we're talking about. This is a whole show by itself. Right?
Yeah, I to come again. At this time, we're on Magic 102.7. We're on all fronts. We have in virtual webinar. We are grateful that we have Dr. Calvin D. Lawrence, author of Hidden in White Sight, All AI Powers, How AI Powers and Deepens Systemic Racism. We've been engaging in a very thought-provoking conversation. My mind, I got so many more questions, but for our webinar participants who have been tuned in, listening, it's your turn.
Dr. Lou, I would say you continue with your questions right now because we don't have any in the Q&A, and I have prompted. So I'm just waiting. Maybe now that you've given them the space, they will. But while we're waiting for any questions, you can continue to come.
Well, I just hope that the conversation hasn't been that deep that they just want to listen, and there's not enough provocation for them to ask questions, because this is about asking questions. So it's there for our people. But I will go, take that liberty of... as an educator, Dr. Calvin, and knowing also your nonprofit, I want to bring into this conversation the future, because at the table must be the future in terms of our children, our youth. who probably are, of course, have a closer affinity to AI than many adults.
Yeah.
All right, and when you talk about the humanistic and the morality and all of that, and holding accountability and transparency and trust and responsibility, our children is key in this growth of our role in AI. And so, share with us, your nonprofit in terms of getting as many black children and youth engaged in AI and the creation and building AI.
Yeah, thank you for giving me an opportunity to comment on it, because it was singularly the reason why I retired/resigned from IBM. It was the main reason. I had started the nonprofit. Had been in existence for a couple of years. It coincided with me writing the book. But so AI for Black Kids. AI for Black Kids is a global nonprofit where we basically we go from 6 to 19. And my goal is to train students of color with the level of technical expertise that they could go and get a job from me when I worked at IBM. So it wasn't like play. It wasn't an after-school program. It wasn't, let me show you how to use ChatGPT. Let me show you how. No, it was, we're going to build ChatGPT. We're going to build large language models. We're going to build agents. We're going to do stuff that you would not get an opportunity to do because of your skin color and how you grew up. So I'm going to take the skill set that I have, the people that I know, and so I've been able to pull in people from all over, folk in my network, to volunteer with these students. And again, the idea behind it is that once you go through this 1 to 2 week program, we normally do it in the summer, by the way, we've done 3 of them thus far. We're going to do one in London, hopefully in August this year. We're going to do one in Canada, and we're going to do another one on the West Coast in Oakland, California, hopefully. So I actually donate about 8 weeks of my time to these camps. I'm there every day. I'm leading it. I'm the main teacher. And again, we have a curriculum, and that curriculum is based upon, it's a college level curriculum. And people, when we first did it, these kids are not going to learn that. That's too deep. But I can tell you, these kids surprised everybody but me, because I knew that they could do it. And none of these kids had ever touched AI. None of them. They only knew the cursory, high level view of what AI is. But we start dribbling down, and we have a curriculum that we've defined, and it's a fun curriculum. It's not. We've never lost a student. That's very hard.
Let me ask you this here, because I was sharing with a colleague of mine today, and supported her inspiration with something that she created. She created somewhat of a storyboard of 4 Bermuda students, but the path to digital mastery is what she created, right? And I was sharing with her actually your camp. And part of the conversation, I'd like to get your perspective on this here. We were, without giving, she made a presentation today that I'm going to say, it takes time to convince minds with this here. And she's forward thinking, visionary, but very practical. And in our conversation, you can go online and you see the AI challenge. They AI 28-day challenge AI certification. Well, she's constructed something almost comparable for our young people through the course of their schooling experience journey as seniors, as high school students who are freshmen to senior level, will have the experience of this AI journey, where by the time they graduate, they would have met at least a minimum of 6 AI certifications. And if you look at the 28-day challenge AI, which is for adults, it's advertised frequently, I was sharing with her, we have students who could do this in 28 days. And this is the type of, we'd say, we use the term electives or encore courses, if it's not the core of math, language, science, social studies. These would be some of the courses that, to me, would excite today's students, and especially public education here. And I wanted to get your perspective and I haven't seen your curriculum, but when I think in terms of obviously what you have done and what you do, because you're talking students building it, that's what I envision where we should have many of our young people building those type of apps and building it in such a way where they're problematizing and solving in terms of how do you build an app that, for example, enhances Bermuda's hospitality industry, right? That's one of the pillars, so-called pillars of our economy. With many of our students going into international business, they're going into it and they would have these micro certifications already. So I'm very keen and curious in terms of, in your 8 weeks, what comes out of that. And let me just pause. I think, Stacy, do you have a question? Is there a question on the floor? I defer. Hold mine, but go to the registered audience in the webinar.
We have 3 questions.
Please.
So would you say companies using AI for their hiring process negatively impacts people of color in the U.S.?
That's a great question. I think it can. I'll say that. Not just necessarily it won't, right? Or it will or it won't. I don't think I can really comment on it because it depends upon the algorithm. But I would say holistically, what we do in regards to consultation to those the HR departments is saying that if you're using AI at the beginning of the funnel without human input, then that's a bad thing. It's a bad thing, right? If you're using AI to determine something or determine who gets hired, right? If you're using AI to assess a resume for things like, and people do this all the time, right? The thing is, it's a really good question because everybody's doing it the same way. Most companies in the U.S. are buying off-the-shelf hiring processes like Workday. I'll use their name and others. They're not building their own AI for hiring. They're using this small group of hiring software companies, 5 or 6 of them. And most of them are very problematic. Most of them, there are some cases. I have a guy who's going to come on my podcast. He's one of the folk who's suing one of these major hiring processes because they kept skipping over his resume. The AI was skipping over his resume. And I would say this to the questioner is that I can build a model overnight that could be biased against a person of color around hiring, and nobody would know. So if I could do that, and I have a conscience of this conversation, a person who doesn't have a conscience of it, who are just trying to build an application to solve some business requirement around hiring, they're not intentional about ensuring that a person of color is not negatively impacted, then most likely that person of color will be. Hopefully that answered it.
Thank you. The next question is, given the known biases and origins of many assessment measures, how do we best protect ourselves and children from data entered into assessment data portals? Many tools require that assessments utilize online portals that include a range of personal and demographic data. What is in place to ensure that this information will not negatively impact on their future at a later stage? And how can this be prevented?
Yeah, and I'm telling you, that is an amazing question. That's something we didn't talk about, but I can tell you, we call that, by the way, social scoring. Social scoring, right? And most people, I frown upon it, to be quite honest. And many scholars agree with me that the people who are building these type solutions to do these types of assessments, just building them mostly for, in my opinion, for ease of use. But we know when you assess a person, especially a child, the best counselors, the best advisors, the best teachers are people who get into the foxhole with the kid, who try to understand exactly what's going on and causing whatever the behavior, good or bad, is happening. If it's good behavior, you reinforce it, right? There's algorithms that does reinforcement, but just most people build it with classification type stuff. It's simply because they don't know how to program it, right? So you can get to end of job without having that reinforcement. So I'll answer the question. Social scoring, that assessment component that you just said, I think it could be bad and be horrifically bad if done incorrectly. No, don't get me wrong. I do think that AI plays a part in being able to assess. Matter of fact, I'm working with a client now who are who are using AI basically as a student classification engine, not a social scoring. Because I mean, when I was in school, you was three types of students, right? You was somebody who wasn't going to go to college. We call that a basic. So you had basic classes. You had just bare minimum kind of classes in the U.S. If you were kind of an average student, you might want to go to the military or might have your own company or blah, blah, blah. They call that a general subject. And if you were going to college, meaning that you're in the 9th grade and you say, I want to go to college, they put you in advanced classes. So once you get in one of those classes, it was very difficult to get out of that. So if you were 5th grade and you were in basic classes, then you kind of stayed there. That wasn't fair, right? And I'm not saying that there's not exceptions. There are plenty of them, lots of exceptions, but generally that was what was going on. Now we're using AI to be able to assess a student per se, an individual student, not a group of students, which is what that old model did. So AI has its place, right? It's providing 98%. I think the 2%, that social scoring piece that the questioner kind of alluded to, is that's the devil in the detail. So it needs a lot more around it, a lot more assessment, like more people like myself and others who are actually in the foxhole understanding what those algorithms are doing and how they're doing it.
And there was a third question, Stace?
Thank you.
That's it?
It's a third question.
Go ahead.
Where do you see the biggest untapped opportunity for AI services over the next 3 to 5 years.
Wow, that's a good one. That's a good one. Because AI is all over financial services. Is that from an entrepreneur perspective? I wonder, is that question more for kind of startups, entrepreneurs, or is that something that if I'm talking to State Street Bank, if I'm talking to a large bank or insurance company, is there any more around it? Because I think my answer will differ dependent upon that.
There is nothing else to the question, but we'll ask while we're online if that person wants to answer that.
Yeah.
Through the.
Well, I'll answer what they ask. And I'll assume that they're talking more for entrepreneurship component. I think AI, the opportunity around AI is massive around financial services, right? And some of the areas is that AI does a very good job at the core of being able to assess lots of coming up with an answer, coming up with an answer based upon data points. So if you build in an algorithm doing any kind of assessment, financial risk assessment, to determine whether you do something or not, right? I don't want to give all of my good ideas away on the podcast, but think about the idea of using AI to very quickly assess lots of data points, even if it's from your friends. And what you do, right, from an entrepreneurship is you find out where is the data points. Where is data? Where do you get data from? And right now, everybody sells their APIs. Everybody sells their APIs. Like every social media company provides an API into it. It just so happens that most of the major tech companies are the ones that are using them, but you could use them also. I use them. We have a system over in the U.S. called OpenTable, which allows you, I don't know how many of your audience know about OpenTable, but OpenTable will allow you to book a reservation at a restaurant online. So you just book it, probably got it there. And so there, almost any city you go to in the U.S., they use OpenTable.
We have it here as well.
Right? Okay, got you. So OpenTable has a public API. You can buy the API. You can get access to all of OpenTable, their data point. You don't get the names and all of that, but you get the name of the businesses. Right? So you can build, right? So from a financial perspective, and to me, it might seem like it's in food and service, but it's not. It's in money. It's not even in retail. It's in financial services. You can do the exact same thing specifically in financial services, right? So you think of, Cash App. Think of some of these other areas. Those applications, they don't really use AI per se. They don't use AI. They're moving. They're moving into AI. So to answer your question is that every opportunity is an opportunity around AI. AI can actually on every problem it is, right? And then, but the thing that you will do when you build it, you will build it differently. You would basically build it based upon the non-functional and functional requirements, but you'll also know in the back of your mind that I'm going to protect the user from AI going rogue.
Wow.
Like that's the ask.
Well, Dr. Calvin, I'm 90 minutes in overtime. It's been enjoyable. Don't want to stop, but it's been enjoyable, informative, educational, all of the above. And we are certainly grateful for the tag teaming with Curb on this important conversation. And as we said, it's your first virtual. It will not be your last. We're working on something else, Bermuda Public, live and direct, because we trust that much of the conversation that you've heard here tonight is a conversation that we would want to extend live and direct, especially as we talk about some of the things that are pertinent to Bermuda directly in terms of AI and corporation. There's lots of discussion going on right now in Bermuda pertinent to AI and corporations. And when we talk about predictive policing, I look at it and think of it in the context of what is currently our greatest challenge and support. I mean, you speak of the importance of being of support. We all want fair policing, trustworthy policing in our communities. And when we talk about around the whole gang epidemic that we're dealing with here in Bermuda and the violence that goes with it, I mean, we just had another killing a few days ago. There are solutions, I do believe, connected to predictive policing and AI. If we probably strike the right algorithms, looking at unsolved cases, we can come to some resolution and some healing with people.
If I could jump
Sure.
in on that, because I say this oftentimes because sometimes the conversation seems to be negative, but AI is an opportunity zone. It's an opportunity zone, right? We want to work with banks. We want to work with police officers. We want to work with insurance companies because that is the opportunity zone. That is the area, and it's like building a house. And you build your house knowing that you got to lock the door, but you don't not build a house because you're afraid that somebody might break into your house. You know, you build your house and then you safeguard it with locks. So that's what doesn't take me to do that. Banks are doing that. Every bank that's in Bermuda, I guarantee you, they have a responsible component of their organization, right? So all we're doing here in these conversations is saying, hey, look, let's build it together. Let's work with a police department. Let's show how we can do predictive policing to solve 80% of your crimes faster, and let's do it responsibly.
Indeed.
That is the goal.
Indeed.
That's the purpose.
And I would add to it, let's do it in building with our young people. Getting as many of them into understanding and the knowledge of building AI. We can certainly, truly transform our education system in terms of 21st century as we talk about understanding AI.
You just talked about the win.
Yeah.
That's the big win. I get it. So, you're 30, you're 20, you're 25, 30, 35, 40, all the way up. You want to use AI, you need to, but you're not really the target.
No.
Not really the target. I get it. I know you need to know a little bit of it, but it's not going to impact you. You're not going to make the money that you might think you would because people are all doing these things. But our children, this is a gift to them. They will change the way life works in Bermuda. The children of Bermuda will have a different experience than the 45-year-old person in Bermuda today if we train them. But if we compete with them, if we're the ones in the room and we're the ones that want to make the money, and that is the challenge, and that's what we see in the U.S., that's what we see in the U.K., that's what we see in Canada. It's like you have a meeting and the adults are flooding the room when the reality of it is the messaging, to be quite honest, the messaging is for our children.
And to me, that is the real legacy building and community wealth building, when you invest in them, in their learning, and let them see the greater value of this technology to their rest of their life. Yeah.
Yeah, because if we don't do it, and I know we got to go, but if we don't do it, what happens is, you know how no matter how good or bad you've lived, they're going to live worse. The children of today is the very first generation, no matter where they go, whether you're U.S. or Bermuda, they're the very first generation that stands to be worse off than their parents.
Yeah.
The very first generation, if we don't get in front of it, and AI is a big contributor of that, because now you can go to college and can't get a job because AI is doing that job. Your parents went to college and they got a job. There was tons of jobs for them. They weren't competing with technology. Technology was a tool for them. Now AI could very well take the job from you, and a business owner is faced with, do I pay you $100,000, or do I pay an AI algorithm, or do I pay $30,000 and have Calvin build it for me and never have to pay again for it? That is the challenge. So if we don't teach our kids to be creators, not a user, you don't need to teach your kids how to use ChatGPT. It's like teaching them how to use the cell phone. They don't even the mobile device. They don't even know how to do it. They come out of the womb knowing how to use ChatGPT. You need to teach them how to build.
There's I just read this here, and I appreciate you placing emphasis on that. They were speaking about, it's not that AI is going to replace you. It's someone using AI might take your job because they've mastered how to use it, how to apply it, how to build it.
And in some cases, I can tell you, I know plenty of cases where AI will replace you. Will replace you, right? I'm working as a large retailer right here in the U.S. and they're global. There we built a store of the future for them. You would know the name, I won't call them. But in this store of the future, they got thousands of stores all over the world. There's no people in their store of the future. They're going to roll it out in the next 2 years. So if you are a retailer, if you are a person who works in that, you're a teller, or you stack boxes or take things off the shelf, yeah, if that's what you do for this particular retailer, you won't do it. And they're so big that whatever they do, the other retailers are going to follow. So you learning how to do that, that's not going to help you, because they're not going to pay twice. This company, this retailer, is going to save $5 billion a year in their store of the future.
Wow.
That's just the reality.
Well, on that note, with that reality, it's been real tonight. And like we said, it's not the last time. Dr. Calvin Lawrence, we certainly appreciate you in terms of sharing this conversation. Hidden in White Sight, how AI empowers and deepens systemic racism. And we trust that you, the listening audience, and the participating audience in the webinar, we certainly thank you for the questions that you posed. This certainly indicates a deeper conversation is forthcoming. All we say to you, Dr. Calvin Lawrence, you'll hear from us soon.
I love it.
You'll hear from us soon. And we'll build on this here. And once again, thank you to Curb for the tag teaming and the support in the webinar on this important subject. I'll say we have Dr. Mary Louise Patterson next week. And when if you know anything about Dr. Mary Louise Patterson, a civil rights giant. A civil rights giant. And she's been here in Bermuda writing her memoir. She's chosen a beautiful place to do it. And we will have her in studio, hopefully, or webinar. We haven't made up our mind yet, have we, Stacy? Yeah. Well, either way, she's here, and we plan to have her in to go deeper into, this is part 2 with her, discussing really universal health care in Bermuda. And of course, much of what you have spoken to, Dr. Calvin, in terms of AI, we want to bring that in, that number 5, in terms of legislative possibility or potential. That's one of them. That's a big one here in Bermuda right now.
I love it. I love it. I love it. That's gonna. You have a giant.
Yes. Yes. More to come. More to come. So you stay safe, stay blessed,
Thank you, sir.
and more to come.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the invite.
More to come. Thank you. Be safe.
You too. Bye bye.
Lady Stacy, see you soon. All right, you've been listening to On All Fronts, and we now will take you. You're the first caller. Good night. Turn your radio down. Turn your radio down. Help our ears. And
yeah, sorry about that.
No problem.
Brother Lou. I was hoping to.
We do it a little differently with the radio call-in because in terms of him actually hearing the question clearly, sometimes it's problematic. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Because I wanted to ask for some specific examples, actually, of these jobs that may go missing because of AI. I heard people saying. I heard people saying that sort of thing. I've heard that before, but I've not actually heard specifically what jobs.
Well, he just gave some examples of, especially in the retail sector, and
he mentioned retail. Yeah.
I mean, right now, interestingly, Bermuda,
this whole thing about peopleless stores. Man.
Some of it has already begun.
Crazy to me. That don't make no sense to me, brother Lou. That don't make no
Some of it has already begun.
Where?
Well, if you go in, I'm sure if you've traveled through airports, while they have persons observing, right, you could walk in the store, pick up your item, and walk out. And your card is already, your card is already, because you got to enter, I think, with your card. You pick up an item and walk out, that card is charged.
Yeah, I don't see that as being, personally, at this point, I don't see it as a reality. Not maybe in some small way, but not in any large way. We need to interact.
You mean in Bermuda you don't see it? Because it's already elsewhere.
Okay, then.
It's already elsewhere. So you mean in Bermuda you don't see it?
Well, no, what I'm saying is that I can see that in some small way, perhaps even here, but not in some of these larger retail stores and stuff like that. No, we're not going to accept doing.
Well, you just missed what he said. He said he just gave example that it has already begun, and he said in 2 years you will see the
I
full.
didn't hear him say that, but what I wanted to know is specifically where, so that we can actually go online, perhaps and look at the store.
It's going to be in some of your major cities across America.
Yeah, I don't.
The Asian community is already doing it, by the way.
You know what I'm saying? No disrespect to the doctor, but I want to hear specifics so we can actually research and look at these examples. Because personally, I don't see that.
All right.
The reality.
I'll say this here. By next week, I'll have some personal evidence for you. How's that?
Yeah. We're going to examine. That.
It does exist. It does exist.
I don't think AI is going to be taking up a whole lot of jobs, quite frankly, brother Lou. I don't see it. Listen, I mean, here's the deal, man. We got government. And the responsibility of government is to secure jobs.
Really?
Not to just let jobs just flying out to some foreign entity somewhere else. We're not going to stand for that.
You actually, when we look at what's going on right now, and this is for the rest of the listening audience, if you agree or disagree, because I certainly disagree with you because I see it already operative. It's already operative.
me some real examples.
Why we just gave you an example that you disbelieve.
You gave me
So
an example that was Tor, and I gave no disrespect to Doctor at all, but that was I heard Tor.
I'm going to give you the exact location of where that is. That's what you need to see.
Right, that's not a problem,
I appreciate that you're a see me person.
That I'm a what?
You are a see me person. I got to show you first. I can't talk to you about it.
Well, not really, not altogether, not entirely. You know, it's just that when something makes sense, even if I don't see it, I can rock with it. I can go along with that. But when something don't make sense, then no. And this don't make sense to me.
Well, let me break down something real. Here's something that makes sense for you, and you may or you may not see it in the same context. I believe in Bermuda, we are very fortunate that, for example, we can go to our gas stations, right? Mm-hmm. And we still are serviced station.
That's right.
Still. Do you know most places?
That's always be.
Do you know at most places you travel to that is not the case because it's all automated?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You imagine if and that too is AI, by the way. Okay?
Yeah,
as automated as it is, that too is AI.
I can see the sense in that, but damn customers have a choice if they want to go to somewhere where there's no people there. You know?
No, after hours, they may use the automated. But what I'm saying to you is, we are fortunate that we have employers, owners of service stations who still hire persons to service you at the gas tank.
I think that's necessity. I don't know if it's just we fortunate.
You think that's a necessity? Well,
we can't expect women to go into these gas stations somewhere they pumping and all that nonsense.
Oh, I'm going to stop. My brother, I'm going to stop. I'm going to take the next caller. There are women who are laughing at you right now. I'll talk to you later.
No, they ain't.
Yes, they are. Talk to you later. How many women don't know how to pump gas? Really? I question you. Today's woman? Yeah? Oh. All right. You better believe it. Look, this has been a very hearty conversation. I trust and hope that you, the listening audience, garnered something from the conversation that we had with Dr. Calvin Lawrence. This is significant and important conversation because when you look at even the papers recently, Claire Shevchik, what was it? That was on March the 6th. It was insurers begin covering AI mistakes as adoption spreads. Again, clear evidence of the role that AI is playing in risk management in the insurance industries of Bermuda. I shared earlier, this was the other one, AI and insurance productivity gains and emerging risks. This was by the Business Development Agency Bermuda. And they, the conference that they had, they were talking about building what's next. And what next, like I said, AI is right there with it. So corporate Bermuda already knows, they already know the implications of AI in their industry. And who was it? I think it was Mr. Leon. He made a statement. He says, I think AI is going to be a necessity for the sector and not a luxury anymore, right? In addition, and this is George Leon. He's the Deputy Director, Supervision, FinTech. And if you know anything, the Minister of Finance, the Premier, has been busy at conferences dealing with FinTech. And so Bermuda Monetary Authority and George Alon, they have suggested that AI was no longer optional, people. It's not an option anymore. All right? It's not an option anymore. It is very much a way of our lives right now. And it plays a role in every aspect of our lives, as well as business in Bermuda. So it's very important that we know, and as Dr. Calvin Lawrence said, especially those of us in the black community, we must get in the business of building it. And so building it also means exciting our children about STEM education. And this gives me opportunity to shout out to some very innovative, creative educators of mine, Shaquita Parsons, Neville Zool especially, some of the innovative things that they're beginning to put together to place our children right at that table that Dr. Calvin Lawrence spoke about. As he said, too often, it is the adults, really. We have to strike a balance. It is the adults who are getting in the way of our children and our young people leading the path for us. We have to invest in them. So as much as we talk about education, as much as education has been in the newspaper of late, I would venture to say that also we have an opportunity to work along with our young people, with our children, as young as 4 and 5, mediate, manage their screen time as they also develop their skill set in terms of how AI will function and is functioning in their daily lives. And so, with parents, if you've given your child a cell phone to play with,